Hello, I'm Doha Arnouss, a passionate kindergarten teacher at Ofoq Jadeed School, Lebanon. Today, I'd like to share with you my story with differentiated instruction. In this presentation, I'll be sharing 1. Why there was a need to panic. 2. What's the question to be answered? 3. What did theories tell about differentiation? 4. How was differentiation conducted? 5. What were the findings? And 6. What did the findings mean? In fact, it all started in my classroom when one day, one of my students approached me and said, Ms. Doha, I feel bored. The activity is really boring. Can I do something different? And I went like, what? I wasn't able to believe what he was trying to tell me. That's because I've never ever expected that one day one of my students would give such a compliment. And this maybe because I've always thought I design very good plans for everyday's activities. Rethinking about it, let me believe that something has to be done in a different way. I need instructional strategies that will help me reach all my students and will help all my students reach their full potentials. In the EduLEAD program, Benchmark 3, Leading Culture, differentiated instruction received much attention as a possible strategy. Tomlinson, known as the guru of education, stated that differentiation is crucial to provide quality education while meeting students' different needs at the same time. Tomlinson believed that effective educational strategies are guided by the differentiated instruction approach. Differentiated instructional strategies were developed to enhance the learning of students, but little is known about the relation between differentiation and the better achievement results. Throughout this project, I will be looking for an answer to the following question. Does incorporating differentiated instructional practices lead to significant increase in students' achievement in the kindergarten classes? As we move into theories, it is important to mention that differentiation started as a criticism to the one-size-fits-all approach, where two extremes of students, the high and the low, are not appropriately challenged. In 2006, Salinger stated that teachers who practice differentiation are sensitive to the developmental differences among the children, and thus they plan, teach, and arrange the classroom environment in a way that accommodates each child's unique needs. In her study in 2008, Luster wanted to determine the most effective instructional strategy in an inclusive classroom. As a result, this study supported learner-centered classrooms to educate diverse and heterogeneous population of students. Strengthening the importance of differentiated instruction, Gregory and Chapman wrote a book in 2012 that shows teachers what differentiation looks like in a classroom, including instructional best practices and curriculum models. As for Tomlinson, in 2014, she wrote guides and books that turn the theory of differentiation into practice, providing teachers with practical ways and strategies that will help them differentiate in their classrooms. Based on all the information I've learned about differentiation, I've decided on taking the differentiated instruction approach into my classroom as it will provide better instruction and better learning opportunities. The study was conducted in 2 kindergarten classrooms, where one class with 19 students formed the control group, where the other class with the other 19 students formed the experimental group. The control group received the traditional teaching practices, while the experimental group received differentiated teaching practices. I chose to differentiate the content, process, and the product of the phonics skills over 3 weeks and according to students' readiness levels. Now, to know the readiness level of every student at every new skill, I've designed and used entry cards that look like this. Then I collected the data and analyzed it using the analysis sheet. This step helped me in grouping students as below level, on level, and above level. As for the weekly plans, I've used the tiering module to guide me when planning for the differentiated activities for the different levels. So this is how the plans look like. You will notice that there is part for whole group activity, and there is part for small group activity, and there is time allocated at the end of every week for assessment. This is an example of a below-level activity where students had to sort the cards as N and not N. This is an example of an on-level activity where students had to sort the cards as begin with N and don't begin with N. This is an example of an above-level activity where students had to name the picture, read both of the words, and then circle the correct word. Now you are seeing photos of some of the differentiated activities in my classroom. So here the girl was trying to build words that has letter N, and here there is the creation of the little ones, the letter C bracelet. Here the girl was trying to find the letter C, and the other photo shows kids racing to sort the cards. This group was trying to recognize uppercase and lowercase letters, and the last picture shows how kids were sorting the cards after cutting and gluing them. Now, the last picture shows the real life. In fact, I worked with one group while all the other students were doing independent work. After the implementation of the activities, students of both groups were assessed. The grading scale is interpreted as following: 5 outstanding level of performance and 1 unsatisfactory level of performance. The data was collected and recorded on the recording sheets for comparison purposes. Using SPSS, statistical package for the social sciences, t-tests were conducted to check and determine if a significant difference between the achievement results will exist or no. So, the first way to compare the results was to compare the mean of the letter, name, and sound of the experimental group to that of the control group. So, the results were the p-value related to the letter N was 0.167. Now, this number is greater than 0.05 and shows that no significant difference existed between the adjusted means. The same result goes for the letter C p-value. As for the letter O, no p-value was found, and this is because of the same achievement results for both groups. Now, another way to compare the results were checking and comparing the means of the name competencies, then comparing the means of the sound competencies. So, the results found were 0.163 and 0.135 respectively. Both numbers were greater than 0.05 and shows that no significant difference existed between the adjusted means. A last way to compare the results was comparing the letter N name, then the letter N sound competencies separately. The results found were 0.163 and 0.331. both again greater than 0.05, and shows that no significant difference existed between the adjusted means. The same way of comparison was done for the letter C and for the letter O. So sometimes the p-values were not found, and this is because of the equal means, and sometimes the p-values found were greater than 0.05, and again, no significant difference existed between the adjusted means. Well, all the results indicated that no significant difference existed between the achievement results of both groups, the differentiated and the non-differentiated, especially when compared to the level 0.05. The question is answered. If differentiated instruction approach is incorporated in the kindergarten classroom, it will have no effect on the student's achievement. Well, although the effect size of the intervention is fairly small, the results were to some extent expected. And that's because the intervention lasted for only 3 weeks. 3 weeks is a short period of time to test the effectiveness of a new teaching approach. Now, despite this fact, I believe that those 3 weeks were the best teaching weeks for me and for my students, because I wanted to respect the needs found in there. I wanted to value the differences in my classroom. And I felt I achieved that when I saw more happy faces, more motivated kids, more confident kids, and more positive energy coming into my classroom every single day. Now, if you are a teacher willing to incorporate differentiated instruction, I recommend you start with the most accessible ways in your classroom. Take small steps. So maybe you can start with one student or one activity, and then proceed by differentiating the content, the process, or the product. One important thing for teachers to do is to adjust their teaching schedules to include time for differentiation. And then they plan, collect, bring in, and utilize as much teaching resources as possible so that the students don't feel they are doing the same things repetitively. I recommend that teachers in the classroom take into consideration students' multiple intelligences, learning styles, learning profiles, readiness levels, and interests. If taken into consideration, then activities will spontaneously vary, and thus the needs will be met. Further research should focus on how teachers actually understand and respond to diversity in a classroom. Further research should also focus on the thoughts of teachers on differentiated instruction. So why not just ask teachers whether they think differentiation is difficult and why? Answers will help in removing the obstacles that teachers face when differentiating. As a final thought, new obstacles will pop out in education on a continuing basis. So finding the most effective ways in creating 21st century learners capable of excelling globally must be the most driving force in today's educational system. As for differentiated instruction, it is one of the approaches that will help teachers keep in mind the following. If a child cannot learn the way we teach, maybe we should teach the way they learn. Thank you.